Low 60s all week long with partly cloudy skies into the weekend.
Thanks, Jessica. In San Francisco, we know that finding a place to park your car can be dicey at best, a nightmare at the worst. And this week, it could get even tougher to find a spot. The SFMTA has started to issue warnings for cars that are parked too close to a crosswalk. Max Darrow has more on the new rules designed to protect pedestrians and the concern that the change could come with some costs.
So do you see this car right here, how it's parked right up against this crosswalk? This is a perfect example of what will get you a ticket starting on January 1st. Up until that point, the SFMTA will be issuing warnings, not citations. But now many people are concerned the elimination of parking spots will be a problem in a lot of San Francisco neighborhoods. California's so-called daylighting law will prohibit vehicles from parking within 20 feet of a crosswalk in the direction of approaching traffic, whether it's marked or not. Lawmakers passed this to make the streets safer for pedestrians because it will increase visibility. That being said, Doreen Connell, who lives in Pacific Heights, says when it comes to parking,
it's about to get a little bit harder.
The change will eliminate thousands of parking spots in the city. In the Marina District, Leah Webster says parking is already challenging enough for those who live in the neighborhood.
I just think so many people park on the street and depend on it, and there's not as many garages. So anyone who has a car, it's definitely going to be a struggle for.
And in Chinatown, Ed Su, the chairman of the Chinatown Merchants United Association, has other concerns.
We need more parking space. We need more business. If they take off the parking space, that means, we're losing our business.
The law went on the books at the start of 2024, but the SFMTA hasn't started issuing warnings until now.
Right now we are unclear, about all the circumstance on it.
Su, who has a lot of questions about how it'll work and the impact it may have on his neighborhood, says he's frustrated SFMTA outreach didn't begin sooner.
Got a whole years, to telling us what they're going to do and how they're going to do it.
Some curbs are already painted red, prohibiting parking close to a crosswalk. But under the new law, drivers will be on the hook for parking within 20 feet of the crosswalk, even if the curb isn't painted red. And although he's not thrilled about the change, Su says he'd like to see the curbs clearly marked red. The purpose of the law, make the roads safer. Over 40 states already have laws similar to this one in place. The executive director of Walk SF tells us, daylighting is one of the cheapest and easiest solutions for making streets significantly safer, reducing traffic crashes by up to 30%. This new law will save lives in San Francisco and improve safety for everyone who uses the roads, including drivers. Though it may make parking a bit harder in her neighborhood, Connell thinks the pros outweigh the cons.
Anything that's about safety is priority for me.
The law takes effect statewide on January 1st. In San Francisco, citations will start at $40.
And we might be seeing more driverless cars on the streets of San Francisco. Zoosk has been running its test fleet with a safety driver for several years. Now it says it is ready to move ahead with autonomous test rides. For now, though, that is only available to Zoosk employees. Sonoma County is the latest Bay Area county to reinstate mask mandates at healthcare facilities. That order coincides with the beginning of the respiratory virus season. The mandate going into effect next Monday and lasting through April. Most other Bay Area counties enacted a similar mask mandate at the beginning of the month. Governor Newsom announcing that he has started the process to grant a posthumous pardon for a veteran in Petaluma. Sergeant Richard Allen Penry was awarded the Medal of Honor during the Vietnam War, but Penry's struggle to return to civilian life led him down a path of drugs and crime. John Ramos has more on the effort to clear his name and the larger push to address the impacts of war that are so often ignored.
Veterans Day is a time for us to thank those who don the uniform of the U.S. military, and nobody does that better than Petaluma. But even here, many who return are left to feel alone, and one man is making it his mission to change that.
The
The small town of Petaluma is said to have the second largest Veterans Day celebration in the state, and overlooking the annual parade is Penry Park, named for Sergeant Richard Allen Penry, a native son who was awarded the Medal of Honor for what happened one day in a jungle in Vietnam as his company came under attack.
He single-handedly, by himself, held off a larger enemy force and then single-handedly evacuated people to an opening in the jungle where they can drop a jungle extractor. They said that he didn't just save his platoon, he saved the entire company from an ambush.
Retired Army Major Andrew Lamarquand has taken a special interest in Penry's story, not just for carrying 18 wounded soldiers to safety, but also because of what happened immediately afterwards.
He was just sitting there, Sergeant Penry was sitting on a log by himself, just smoking a cigar, shaking, and just all alone, and didn't want to be by anybody for obvious reasons. And yeah, isolating oneself is one of the first signs of folks that are have experienced some pretty severe trauma.
Sergeant Penry had PTSD, even though the term hadn't been invented yet and no one talked about it much. He returned to a hero's welcome but got no help dealing with the horrors he had experienced. He began using drugs, and 2 years after receiving the Medal of Honor, was arrested on state and federal charges for selling $950 worth of cocaine. His younger sister Patty says, like everyone else, the brother she called Butch had strengths and weaknesses.
I believe the judge that sentenced him also said that he did more for his country in one day than most Americans do in an entire lifetime. So, I mean, I guess it's both those things, right? He is just an ordinary person, but he also did something that was spectacular.
Sergeant Penry died in 1994 at the age of 45, but for the last 2 years, Lamarquand has been working to clear his record. He's petitioned both the governor and the president for posthumous pardons for the crime. But he says he's really doing it for those he served with in Iraq and Afghanistan, many of whom are still suffering in silence.
I started to reach out to a lot of the folks that I served with, and it's very well known now that war trauma causes PTSD, and that PTSD is leading to suicide, high rates of drug addiction, and other, whatever people choose to cope in my generation. And then it became clear to me that Sergeant Penry never stood a chance.
And I don't think it's fair that we asked people to go do what they're doing right now and then just leave them. Say, okay, you're back. Have fun. Thanks for your service. And then we just leave them without even really thinking about what has occurred to them or what they've seen or done.
Patty says she's thankful that Marquand is one of the few working to create some kind of reintegration strategy that can support those returning from the fields of battle.
I think what he's doing right now is going to help so many people coming back from war. They're going to get what they need.
Because sometimes it's not enough just to offer thanks for someone's service. We need to offer help as well.
The governor's office says it has passed his clemency request onto the state Supreme Court for final authorization. The request for a presidential pardon for the federal charge is still being considered. Coming up next, a beloved Oakland football coach is saying goodbye to the sidelines after almost 50 years. We're going to hear from the man himself.
this afternoon, but yesterday's rain system was relatively impressive, especially up into the North Bay. Areas like Mill Valley got close to 1 inch of rain, but we're drying up this afternoon with a low 60s still in store for us. By tomorrow, we start to see those showers roll in once again from the north. That'll be the trend for us into Thursday and Friday as well, not only along the bay, but for our inland spots too. We make our way off into the East Bay and the Santa Clara Valley. Temperatures are pretty much the same as they are along the bay. Mid to low 60s today and tomorrow, same trend into the weekend.
Thanks, Jess. Tonight, Klay Thompson is returning to Chase Center for the first time as a Maverick. The four-time NBA champion is returning to play against the team he spent 11 seasons with. There will be a video tribute as he is introduced, and his Splash brother, Steph Curry, is going to say a few words to the crowd before the game. A beloved football coach in the East Bay is retiring after 45 years. He is said to have inspired many young athletes along his way. Vern Glenn introduces us to the man himself from our virtual reality sets.
Anybody who has played football in Oakland likely knows Coach John Beam and his familiar 2 claps. Ready, ready! He's a man that I've respected since I watched his Skyline High School football teams dominate in the 1990s and then transform Laney College into a JUCO power. At his core, John Beam is Oakland football.
I want people to say, like, you know what, that Beam, Coach Beam, he didn't cheat the city. He didn't cheat us. He gave us everything that he had.
John Beam has done all that and more over 4 decades coaching football in Oakland. If I were to say you were the heartbeat of Laney College, could you wear that?
I'd love to wear, but I don't think I am. I think our students are, but I like to think that I'm part of the blood that makes it pump.
Beam spent the last 20 years at Laney College. Before that, he built Skyline High School into one of the best programs in the Bay Area.
Someone looked it up. I've had over 30 kids be involved in the NFL in some way. All that's important and it means a lot, but really how many lives have I been able to impact and have become positive members of society? That to me is even bigger than playing in the NFL.
Beam always puts Oakland first, but he gained national fame in 2020 when Laney was profiled on the Netflix series Last Chance U. Your chest must have stuck out proud when they came to you and said, you know what? We're the Laney College Eagles.
My chest did not stick out proud. I was a little worried. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it at first.
So we won! I'm like fired up!
I get the email and I looked at my family, I showed it to them. My wife's like, no. I was like, Daddy, you can't do it. My youngest like, Daddy, you gotta do it. Like, you gotta do it. Like, what? I think people got to see not only me, but more importantly, our young people here, but also the city of Oakland.
You better come strong, you come to the town.
But now, the 65-year-old says it's time for a new chapter.
I've coached everybody else's kids. Now I want to coach my own, in essence, right? I got to coach my daughters a little bit when they were growing up, but now I got these 2 granddaughters. I want to be the soccer grandpa, right? Or the baseball, softball, basketball grandpa. I'm going to hang out with you. I'm going to carry your camera, your chairs, right?
Well, Beam is going to stay on as athletic director. His final game is this Friday when the Eagles host the College of San Mateo. Coming up, a summit in the South Bay addressing issues affecting our Native American community. We're going to hear from the organizers hoping to honor their history. As we celebrate Native American Heritage Month, an event in the South Bay is bringing together leaders and advocates from diverse backgrounds to try to address challenges and celebrate heritage. Jose Martinez introduces us to some of the key figures involved in this summit and the stories that make this gathering so important.
In the heart of Santa Clara University, Danae Rivera stands at the crossroads of heritage and leadership. A student and director of the Multicultural Center, Danae embodies the rich blend of her Native American, Hispanic, and African American roots. Her grandmother, born in Mexico, was a guiding force in connecting her to the traditions and stories of their ancestors.
Thinking about our Indígena roots, my grandma was speaking her Indígena tongue when I was learning Spanish, and even thinking about even to this day, I'm I wish she would have taught me a little bit more, because then that's just who I am to the core.
So, as she prepares for the Native American Summit in San Jose, Danae understands the stakes. The U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs says California is home to over 100 federally recognized tribes, the highest number in the U.S. Despite this, many Native American communities face significant challenges, including higher rates of poverty, limited access to quality health care, and underrepresentation in education and politics.
I appreciate the efforts of universities being able to still admit students of color after affirmative action decisions, but there just needs to be more. I think there needs to be more because there's still that other feeling when we're walking on campus.
This summit, organized by Ed Vargas, aims to confront these issues head on by focusing on areas such as education, representation, unconscious bias, and gender equity.
One thing that really bothered me growing up was to hear the term manifest destiny. And that was the psychology or the philosophy that if you're a Caucasian, that you could take whatever land you wanted, moving west, and if you put them on a treaty, you didn't even have to live up to the treaty terms. Put them on reservations. And they didn't have representation. Now, there is the government that acknowledges certain tribes are recognized.
Ed Vargas grew up surrounded by the traditions of his indigenous Yaqui and Mexican heritage. Yet he knows firsthand that celebrating heritage isn't enough. Action must follow.
When you start taking a look at statistics that even Hispanics don't know, Native Americans don't know, and share that information, that can bring more resources together to the table to want to change the things and the way problems are defined right now.
Making platforms like the summit vital for change.
They are still here, even if so many were lost. I think we also need to honor the lives that were lost, because a lot of their heritage has to do with their land as well, how the land was physically living and now they are buried within that land, so those are sacred burial grounds.
Danae's journey, intertwined with the vision of leaders like Ed Vargas, reminds us that honoring our roots isn't just an act, it's a promise to the future.
The event at the Mexican Heritage Plaza promises impactful discussions and strategies for progress with a focus on education, health, representation, and cultural preservation. Thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ann Magovic. We're going to be right back with your first alert forecast and another look at your top story.